Welcome back to American Republic. Hope you all had a good day yesterday. Today we're going to talk about Roman numeral 4, the Republican administrations. This is the last Roman numeral for this chapter, chapter 21. We'll talk about the politics of the 1920s. During the 1920s, all three presidents are going to be Republicans. One will serve well, one will serve poorly, and one will not get the chance to serve before trouble befalls him. Let's talk about each of these presidents in order. The presidents of the time went along with the attitudes and goals of the decade. They promoted big business and enjoyed the prosperous times, yet they also ignored the growing problems that would come by the end of the decade. Letter A, the first president was Warren Harding. He served from 1921 to 1923. He was involved with a group of politicians that was known as the Ohio Gang. Harding did his share of favors for those people to achieve his political success. As a senator from Ohio, his campaign promoted a return to normalcy. That's a word that's going around right now thanks to the coronavirus. Everyone wants to return to normalcy. Well, guess what? In 1920, people wanted a return to normalcy from World War I, from the progressive era. They wanted things to go back to the way it was before. Using this campaign, he was easily elected president in 1920. Although Harding may have been honest, his political friends were not, bringing corruption to his administration. Harding had appointed many of his Ohio gang into important positions. Many of these friends used the government to promote their own gain. Let me give you an example. Harding's Secretary of the Interior, Elbert Fall, was caught selling the nation's oil reserves away and imprisoned for it. In fact, he was the very first cabinet member to be sent to jail for what he had done, for doing some criminal activity. This event became known as the Teapot Dome Scandal. Fall had gained control of some government oil reserves and then had leased them to two oil friends who had paid him $400,000. Not small change at all. He ended up going to jail. As you may say, he took the fall for that crime. I know, terrible joke. The fact of the matter was, Harding, as president, failed to lead the nation. He failed to take responsibility for the actions of those under him. He was weak and at fault for allowing the law to be disobeyed within the White House. Even poker parties in the White House were served liquor, even though at the time it was illegal. He once told a journalist, "I have no trouble with my enemies. I can take care of them all right. But my friends, they're the ones that keep me walking the floor at night." To escape these troubles, Harding decided to take a summer trip to Alaska. By the way, first president to ever visit Alaska in U.S. history. But returning from a vacation trip to Alaska, he suffered a heart attack and died. His cause of death is questionable. His wife refused to allow an autopsy done on his body to find out the exact cause of death, but it's generally believed that a heart attack is what killed him, or a stroke. The Teapot Dome scandal and others were uncovered only after his death. So one president down. Next, letter B, Calvin Coolidge. He'll be president from 1923 to 1929. He will be known as a law and order kind of man. Coolidge firmly prosecuted the corrupt officials. He was Harding's vice president, yes, but he reassured Americans by his hard approach on corruption and ridding the capital of the Ohio gang. In fact, he was so popular with ridding the corruption that he was reelected in 1924 on his own terms. A little bit more information about Calvin Coolidge. He's one of my top presidents. If I were to make a list of favorite presidents, he would be in my top 5, I would say. And yet he's probably one of the least well known. Calvin Coolidge was nicknamed Silent Cal, among other things. He was famous not so much for what he said as for what he did not say. He was called Silent Cal for a reason. He did not talk very much. It was not uncommon for him to invite someone to his office and then sit in silence for long stretches of time before dismissing him. Over the fireplace in his home were inscribed the following words: "A wise old owl lived in an oak. The more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard." Why can't we all be like that wise old bird? Coolidge's reticence became legendary. Once at a formal dinner in the White House, a guest sitting beside Coolidge revealed to him that she had bet a friend that she could make the president say more than 2 words to her. Coolidge smiled. The woman tried valiantly throughout the evening to make Coolidge say something, but he remained tight-lipped. At the end of the evening, as the Coolidges were saying goodbye to their guests, the woman shook his hand and Coolidge spoke his first words to her: "You lose." Pretty cool guy. He was also known as Cool Cal as well. Coolidge's inactivity as president suited the mood of the country, and although extremely popular, he refused to run again. Instead of giving a huge speech that you would imagine a president giving, he had slips of paper distributed to reporters simply saying, "I do not choose to run for president in 1928. And that was it. That was his statement that he wasn't going to run again, and he resigned from office. He had also once told a journalist, "It is a better time to leave when they still want you than to leave when no one wants you." And that can definitely be said of President Coolidge. The last president we're going to talk about today is Herbert Hoover. He'll serve from 1929 to 1933. As America continued to enjoy seemingly endless prosperity, Hoover was easily elected over Al Smith, who, by the way, was a Catholic and an anti-prohibitionist. A little bit more information about Herbert Hoover. He was a poor, orphaned farm boy who had proven his abilities by becoming a wealthy mining engineer and then devoting his talents to public service. He had gone to China to help people during the Boxer Rebellion. He had gone to England and Belgium at the beginning of World War I to help provide food to those suffering. He had also been placed in charge of the Food Administration during World War I. Remember Hooverization? The nation also was not ready for Al Smith. Al Smith was the first Catholic to run for president, and he was an anti-prohibitionist. While many, of course, broke the law and drank alcohol, still the majority of Americans were prohibitionists. Although talented, Hoover inherited the impending fall from prosperity. The excesses of the Roaring Twenties were about to bear the fruit of disaster. Hoover would be saddled with the responsibility for the coming Great Depression. That, my students, is the end of the notes. For the rest of this week, you are responsible for reviewing and then taking the Chapter 21 test. Let me make something very clear. I know some of you guys have been doing this, some of you guys haven't, but I don't need you guys to turn back in your notes to me. You can keep those. Now, if you want to make sure that everything stays stapled together, okay, fine, turn it all back in. But if I get your notes, they're going in the trash can. So, you don't need to turn in your notes. Also, it's really helpful for you if, say, we take notes, but then the test isn't till the next week. If you don't have the notes, I'm not giving them back to you, honestly. You'll have to write out the notes yourself. So please make sure that you maintain the notes that you've taken for this chapter until you've taken the test. Then you can throw them away yourself. If you have any questions for me about anything, test preparation or anything else, you can email me or contact me via Skype. Hope you all have a good rest of the day. Be good, do good. Bye.